what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it. Bama is beatable for sure this year. I mean, well, not just beatable. This is the most beatable that Alabama has been in a very long time. I think, though, it's kind of interesting, Jake, when you start to score it here at the onset. It's a game of strength on strength and weakness on weakness, right? How do you evaluate this, though? Because I could kind of go either way, right? My instinct is to say that your weakness is much more glaring than theirs. But at the same time, your strength is much stronger than theirs, right? Like Alabama's defense is really good. Don't get me wrong. I think they might be second in scoring in the SEC. They're like third in total yards. I want to say they lead in sacks, second or third in TFLs. So a very good defense, but not an otherworldly defense. Whereas I would describe LSU's offense as otherworldly right now. And Alabama's offense is bad. They rank near the bottom of everything. But Jalen Milroe is still the second highest rated passer in the SC. He does make a lot of explosive plays. And they're not otherworldly bad like LSU's defense has been otherworldly bad. So in this battle of strength on strength and weakness on weakness, how do you score it? Is LSU's weakness larger than the margin between the two strengths?
Yeah, and it's a fair question. When you look, you're right, defensive leaders, second in points per game, only behind Georgia. Georgia gives up 14. Alabama gives up 16 and a half. As far as yards allowed, Alabama comes in at number 3 behind UGA and Texas A&M. They are tied for first with sacks against Texas A&M.
Yeah, well, A&M, look, we can get to A&M. A&M's actually having a legendary defensive year that they are completely wasting on a 500 team.
Yes, they are. It's going to be a defense that is getting better. Now, I will say this, like the defense for Alabama, when they faced a high-powered offense in Texas, they did not fare well. They gave up 34 points in that one. Look at some of the other offenses they faced. Outside of Ole Miss, they did a fantastic job. But Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Tennessee, all struggling offenses. And I'm not going to take a lot from Middle Tennessee State or South Florida either. But those are offenses that aren't good.
They haven't faced anybody in the same realm as what Jaden Company's bringing to bear, maybe except for Ole Miss. But again, Ole Miss offensive line is not good. That was more about LSU's defensive line being awful.
Ole Miss was out some of their receivers in that game as well. They got them back for the LSU game. So this will by far be the best offense that Alabama faces, because Ole Miss, who's a very good offense, didn't have all their weapons at the time. And so, that's something else to pay attention to when you kind of start to match up, these different stats and different things that are going in LSU's favor and Alabama's favor. So, for me, it's really it's the story. It's Alabama's offense, LSU's defense. Alabama's offense has struggled at times, but they have found some of the things that they enjoy going to, like a Jermaine Burton.
Yeah.
Jermaine Burton is he is a front-running player. That is who he is. If you allow him, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's who he is. And I've played with him. T-Ball's played with players. When they're going well, it's at another level. Now, sometimes they can disappear, and, that's troublesome. But I say front-runner because if he gets going, that only fuels him more and more and more. He plays off that. And so this is a player that you have to contain, because the last couple of weeks he has been feeling himself. He has gone out there and played like a true number one, and they were searching for a number one. They didn't really have one. So those are the type of players in this offense, because when you play LSU's offense, it's going to be Neighbors. It's going to be Thomas. What you're getting into. For Alabama's offense, it's been different guys at different times, but right now it feels like Burton's the one guy that I would say LSU needs to make sure they contain.
Well, to me, Burton's the one guy. McClellan's been fine, and I want to say they only threw it 7 times in the second half last week. They definitely started to take over on the ground last week against Tennessee. But
27 carries for McClellan, I think.
Yeah, so McClellan's been pretty solid, but it does feel like everything starts with Jermaine Burton. And that's potentially a bit of a problem, given that I don't know what form your secondary is going to be in going into this game, as I'm very interested to see what Brian Kelly says about Zy Alexander. It's tonight, right, Taylor? The only availability, I believe, is going to be Brian Kelly night. We didn't have any yesterday.
Yeah, he'll be 5 o'clock today. He's not even doing coach's show this week.
Yeah,
it's just a press conference today.
So I want to see what he says about Zy Alexander, because after the game, the freshman corner's answer was pretty telling, where he was talking about playing Toviano and why am I blanking on the other one's name?
Jeremiah Hughes.
Thank you, Jeremiah Hughes. Yeah, and he was saying, look, they're good, but he kept falling back on this. But it's freshman corners, and that's where we're at. We have freshman corners, and if Jermaine Burton is Alabama's best path to kickstarting that offense, and Jalen Milroe's strongest ability this year has been making big plays to Jermaine Burton, that's not a matchup that I love.
I mean, let's call it like it is. When you have freshman corners, you don't have a lot of depth. Like, it's going to be multiple matchups for the rest of this season. It's not just going to be Bond and Burton there for Alabama, and that's what's going to be, it's going to be difficult. Let's call it like it is for this coaching staff to come up with a plan where they feel like, okay, well, here's where we can cover some things up. Because this defense, like, you can't, rob Peter to pay Paul. Like, you have to pay attention to all levels. Like, sometimes when you have a level that's going so well, it's like, hey, the guys in the middle, I think they can help out in coverage a little bit because we're so solid there. Like, right now, you're still trying to figure out what is what. To some extent on the defense, it's been better, but I don't know where that help's going to come from. And that's on the coaching staff to figure out a game plan to create that help that they needed. Hey, and maybe sometimes help doesn't mean be passive. Sometimes help can be, hey, you know what? These freshman corners, they're not great in zone. You know what they're good at? They're good in man because that's what they've done their whole life because they've been the best player out there, and it's more of an aggressive approach. But maybe you feel better about that approach because that's what they do well.
I think that, yeah, it kind of feels like your best bet is just going to have to maybe outscore them. I'm not saying they're going to put up a ton of points, but I do think Alabama's offense is going to have success here. Big Slim 225 says Perkins will be the X factor, put Bama's quarterback on the ground. Jake, I don't know if you agree. This is going to sound crazy. I almost feel like the pass rush is irrelevant this game because Jalen Milroe has been getting sacked constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama's the worst in the league allowing sacks. He holds onto the ball. He's constantly waiting for the big play. He's been getting sacked every single game, and it doesn't matter because eventually he finds a way to bust through, and that Alabama defense holds serve. So it's like, I feel you in 99.9% of games, I'm with you. You get to the quarterback, oh, man, you're going to win. But first off, LSU's not that good at getting to the quarterback. They ain't like Tennessee, who led the conference and was kicking their ass last week, only until it didn't matter. And then I go back to the stat that I read last week. I haven't seen the updated numbers post-Tennessee, but going into the Tennessee game, Jalen Milroe was carrying an NFL quarterback rating of 125 when pressured. So, like, he had done a very...
there.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds really dumb, but, like, if I look at the key inflection points of the game, getting after Milroe actually is not necessarily one of them for me.
I mean, he's in and not Ty Simpson or someone else because he does a good job of getting away from a rush and creating time enough to be able to make a play downfield. Go back to the South Florida game. Ty Simpson was in there. He was like a statue. I mean, he was getting just mauled by these edge rushers because they knew the spot. They knew the point. The point didn't change. They knew exactly where they had to rush to. It's like when you go in training camp and you're rushing 101s and you got the bag that you swipe by and you hit. That's what Ty Simpson was because that's what kind of passer he is. That's not Jalen Milroe. And so if you have issues protecting, well, you'd rather have him in there than someone else. And so it is an interesting thought. I mean, you look at what LSU's done defensively, and we'll get some of maybe the blitz numbers here coming up in the next break. But, like, as far as a coverage unit, I mean, they're going even deeper into who they are. They've run quarters 39% of the time. That's cover 4. And the last 3 games, they've run quarters 47% of the time.
Damn.
47% quarters, 33% cover 3. I mean, so that's who they are. That's where they're going to live. Now, what do the pressure numbers look like? I have to go back and see where it is for the year compared to where it is over the last couple of weeks because those numbers going up. Remember, we've talked about it's been 10 pretty good quarters of defense for LSU. Well, I was expecting, okay, let's see how much they've changed it up. They've actually gone more of what they've done all season long, which is play cover 3, play quarters, and maybe they're just finally getting to a point where they actually know the zones. They get to the zones. They don't float in coverage. They don't just kind of figure out, maybe if I'm in somewhat the area. No, the area is the area.
Yeah.
And they've done a better job of that.
The assignment football's been much better as we talk about the discipline, everything, not trying to do too much, just focusing on doing your job. The run fits from guys like Andre Sam were especially improved this last week, but you are talking about a different beast with what some of the players that Alabama's bringing to bear. Well, not in a Mizzou, I guess, but post Mizzou certainly. I mean, Auburn's nothing offensively, and Army was starting a freshman quarterback that had never started before, so quite a difference. But again, right? The whole, it's weakness on weakness, strength on strength. Which disparity will be bigger? Because, like Jake pointed out earlier, Alabama hasn't faced anything close to what you're bringing to bear offensively with Diggs and Neighbors and Thomas and Daniels and that offensive line that I just continue to fall in love with more and more each and every week. So it's going to be a fun 2 weeks, man. Starting to hype up this game, continuing to break it down. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.